get that Streamlit thing
And
fixed.
and good evening.
Hello, welcome to Shooting the Crypt. We've got a small panel of DMs today. I'll be your host, Bill Buck, as usual, with the Forever DMs, and with me is.
I am Gabriel Miller with the Forever DMs as well.
And we've got really short announcements coming up. First off, we'd like to give a shout out to our new partner, Go Figured. And if you look in our About section, Go Figured is this amazing website with these very, very detailed minis that we honestly can't wait to get a hold of and paint. Um, but if you go and you use the purchase code FOREVERDMs, you get 10% off your purchase. And, if you want to know how to spell that code and everything, just check in our About section. Also, happy first day of Pride Month, guys.
Happy Pride.
And, please, join us in celebrating and uplifting LGBTQ plus. And, in the gaming community, there's some amazing supplements out there, one of which we just linked to our Twitter. And if you want to know how to get our Twitter, just check out our About section. Um, it is, God, I'm drawing a blank. What was the title of that again?
Adventuring with Pride by Jack
That's
Dixon.
it. Why was it on the tip of my tongue? So yes, Venturing with Pride with Jackophobia. We have him attached to it as well. It's very fun, very cool. You can pick it up at the Pocket Workshop, and that link is on our Twitter. So going into it, we are discussing character backstories today. Not just what makes a good backstory, but trying to give you an idea of really fun backstories and things you can do. And we have some questions coming in that came in via one of our members' Twitter or TikToks. That's at Patrick.writes. A lot of his fans sent us in some questions. Um, First off, let's see. First question. This comes from Anonymous. Says how to tailor a backstory to something about the character you don't understand or didn't live through. Example is a soldier with PTSD, but the player is not a vet.
Well, as a veteran myself, one of my first bits of instinct is going to say, find a veteran and talk to them. Find out what their experience was, things that they celebrate about their time, things that they struggle with about their time, and then find ways to pick in pieces of that to inform the character that you're creating going forward. Great example. Say you're playing an Eberron, which is a higher magic, a very abundant magic setting, and there's magical artillery and sky ships and all kinds of stuff that could have been used in a wartime setting. So uh, maybe if you have a friend of yours who's a Navy vet, ask them what it was like to be at sea and then translate that to an airship. But one really important thing to consider about telling a story about something that you have not personally lived through is remaining respectful of that person's journey. We're talking about made up characters here. We're talking about fantasy worlds and settings, but we want to make sure that we're always being respectful of whatever source material we're pulling from to create those characters.
Just adding to that, if you one stay away from stereotypes. Um, Two, if you respect the individual, you just respect what you want to play. If it's something that you personally haven't gone through, and you don't know someone, there's plenty of literature out there. Step into it, read, anything you get your hands on, not just because it helps you absorb and become part of the character, but it actually will teach you, it'll expand the knowledge on the subject matter that you're interested in. And it's, it's, you can't, you can't just go into it blind and expect to do something respectful.
Absolutely. Great example we have in the Tuesday campaigns that we run, Thrain. one of our player characters is playing somebody who is not a straight male. And so, how did he go about creating this character who identifies as them, they? So, reaching out to someone that he knows to be able to discuss, I would like to explore this character, but I don't know anything about that life. So how can I do it respectfully, and how can I uh, find out more information? And so that particular player went to a friend of theirs and started asking questions. And any character background, I feel like starts with a question. So just exploring, who are they, what is their motivation, these are questions we're asking. So a good question for any character, especially with it being Pride Month, is how do they identify? Are they a traditionally cisgendered individual, or are they not? And how can I play that respectfully if I am not, if I am cisgendered? There's all kinds of different stories out there that you can tell through your characters, and figuring out how to do those things respectfully. Uh, One very, very big topic in our world is systematic oppression. And we, especially we here at the Forever DMs, do not support that in any way, shape, or form. But when we run across answer questions like that in stories, especially with character backgrounds, we want to make sure that we are finding ways to tell those stories respectfully without building upon negative stereotypes. That was a whole lot of information, a whole lot of answer to one question there.
So, honestly, if you don't, I urge players, if you don't think you can do it in a respectful manner, I suggest not doing it. But going into it, if you don't know someone, do read up on the subject.
Absolutely.
Um, Honestly, I can't think of anything else to add to that.
That's okay. That it's kind of a heavy topic, and it's something
Yeah,
that we've covered
right
pretty
out the gate.
decently.
So we'll just move on to the next question.
Absolutely.
Tiger Onyx, courtesy of Patrick's TikTok. How do you avoid toxic tropes and backstories, and what are good tropes to use for a story? Um, Honestly, don't. When it comes to a backstory, the one thing to keep in mind, you're not building a complete character with a backstory. It's you're doing. I like to say you're doing the first chapter of the book. Um, So, how many times have you read a book in the first chapter and the the character is completely fleshed out, and this is the character at the end of the book? It's everything evolves and everything changes. Um, if you write a character that has, as you consider a toxic trope, let's say drug addiction, alcoholism, anything like that, it's I urge players to write a flawed character because it's something to overcome. Not write a flawed character to where you're going to stay flawed. It's it's your own personal plot point that you're going to fix. If you write that your character has a arch rival and he kills the arch rival in the backstory, you're robbing yourself, you're robbing the DM, you're robbing fellow players of a great source of a plot to go forward. It's like, don't kill off your rival in your backstory, have them be alive. Give give the GM something to play with, in regards to that. So I wish we had examples of toxic tropes.
Well, your personal favorite, the over sexualized bard. the
Oh my god.
edgelord rogue, the
No, Edgelord's roads can be done in a very interesting way.
they can, but they can also be super toxic to the rest of the party. I
Yes.
I think the concept of a toxic story, a toxic trope in a character background, for me as a player, I look at how is this going to affect the rest of the party and the players seated across the table from me or across the internet from me at this point. Uh, if I am writing something that, okay, this is a journey this character is going to have to go through, but other players at the table are not comfortable with that, that I would consider a toxic trope. That is something that's going to detract from the experience of everybody else. Uh, I've got a couple of really edgy, really kind of trauma-filled characters that I've dreamed up in my head, but you know, are they gonna be comfortable played out at a table, or is that not okay for the rest of the party, for the rest of the players?
Honestly, that also comes down to the importance of a session zero
Very much so.
is sharing with your group of and check in with your group. If you as a DM feel that a person's bringing in a character that could possibly borderline a toxic trope, check with your other players and straight up ask them, hey, someone wants to bring in a character that has this as, the background story. Does anyone have a problem with that? Because you don't want to blindside someone.
Correct.
Um,
We are
but
collaboratively storytelling. So what is toxic for you may be very, very different than what is toxic for another group or what is toxic for your current group. But you're never going to know if you're not communicating with your GM or your storyteller and the rest of the party as well. Uh,
honestly, my problem with a over-sexualized bard is I want to see over-sexualized other characters. Let's have an over-sexualized paladin. Let's have an over-sexualized warlock. If it's all
Paladin of
because they're charisma
Slanesh.
based, just do it, But yeah, it's the every DM's had that character, and
Yeah.
you handle it in funny ways. It can be annoying, but you don't want to yuck on someone else's yum. If they're having fun, that's fine, as long as it's not at the expense of other party members.
Yeah.
Um, Another one is people like writing the backstory for a lone wolf, and a lone wolf character is very, very hard to fit into a game because why play in D&D with a group of friends if you write a character that doesn't want to be part of a group?
Yeah.
Um, it's it's struggling. It's like you are automatically creating an issue. If you want to go off and do everything on your own, if you want to hoard all the magical items for yourself, if you want to do this, if you want to do that, get ready to. It's a collaborative story. You're playing with friends, and even if you're playing in a current convention, you're going to upset someone with that mode of behavior. And the whole classic, well, that's what my character will do. That's that's sometimes a cop out.
I
Is
think
you
it's always a cop out
Yeah,
in that setting. Yeah.
it's you've really got to think about um, honestly in real life, how's my actions going to affect the other ones at the table?
Yeah.
And you're you're sharing the story. It's not just your story. It's not just your spotlight. It's not just your adventure. It's the party's adventure. It's the GM's story. It's the party story. Everyone's sharing a bit of it. And create a character that wants to share it. And yeah, I mean, if you want to write it into your backstory that you're the lone wolf, that's fine. But have that be your character flaw. Be the lone wolf that decides they're better in a pack. It's like everybody can think of one character that's everyone's favorite that's done that. He has a metal skeleton and claws. Wolverine. It's like he's the lone wolf. He's the typical X-Men lone wolf, but you know what? He realizes he's better in the group. Um,
Absolutely. And to shift just a little bit, what are some good tropes you can use as the second half of that question? One of my personal favorites is the hero. if you have been a hero and now you are deciding to go out and do more heroic things, you can be the soldier that uh, held the gate while reinforcements were coming. You can be the messenger who ran a marathon to tell the Greeks that the Persians were coming. You can be someone who has already been a hero, but that's not their full story. Now they're going forward. Another great one is family ties. A great trope to play into is your connections with the family. Uh, you can be connected to wealth, you can be connected to poverty, you can be connected to a skilled family that's revered throughout the land and play into that. I love playing on family tropes.
It it comes into something that I wanted to say. I wanted to make sure I said in this episode, and it leads right into it.
Sure.
One thing to avoid in a background is writing a complete character from the start. If you say, I want to be this uber demon hunter that's famous throughout the land, that's defeated this demon lord, and that's my backstory at level one. The problem with that is you've already told your story. Now, you can write that, and what if you've lost your powers and you're back to level one? A perfect game that everyone loved growing up, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You start the beginning of that game as Alucard, and he is a quintessential badass. He is killing these high level wolves, going into the mountain, everything like that, going into the castle, and then Death shows up and just takes all his gear. And you're a nobody. You are
Yeah,
like level one, and you got to work yourself back up to that. Fun game, a lot of character development in that game,
absolutely.
but it's you can still have the background you want, but you need to build it for a game. If when writing a story, it's finish it with some place to go. It's Lord of the Rings didn't end with a Bilbo leaving his house. You know, it's gonna go a little further.
Yeah. And you talked about the hero who lost everything. They actually there's a great race to play that if you're playing D&D 5e. Play the Revenant. Revenant is basically a player undead or a resurrected or reincarnated player character that has had a full life or died in battle or something, and now you are what's left trying to make amends or trying to get back or something. You're leaving that big plot hook to be able to play through as you go.
Honestly, they just dropped an amazing background, an amazing race in the last Strahd game for that, or the last Strahd, the Ravenloft book that just came out,
Mm-hmm.
the Undead. Amazing, amazing race that could be so like story wise and like character wise great. Like it actually works in a mechanic where recovered memories are part of your talent,
Yeah,
and it's really really cool. Um,
absolutely.
so go into this other one from another anonymous new player. How can you create an interesting backstory without the knowledge of an established canon? Very easily.
You can approach it a couple of different ways. One, talk to your storyteller, talk to your dungeon master, game master, uh, and just get a couple of little nuggets of information. Okay, you're going to be starting in a town called Schema. It's in the middle of the woods, and there's a festival there. Okay, that is literally all the information I need to write a too many page backstory. Um, you can write any sort of backstory, come up with in your head, make bullet points, however you prefer to do it, um, with very little information. Uh,
I'll honestly do you one better. If you're playing a character that is coming into an established game, or even let's say you're brand new to D&D and it's not a homebrew world. Let's say you're coming into Waterdeep, Faerun. You've never read any of the Forgotten Realm books. You haven't read anything, and they're playing, um, you know, one of the modules. You know nothing about these characters. Well, you know what? You don't have to write a character that wouldn't know everything. Um, you know, eh, have you been under a rock? Yeah, he's been under a rock. Maybe he's, a scholar that's been stuck in a library, or a monk that's been stuck in a monastery that hasn't really read that much. Or, you're a tribesman way out, a barbarian way out in the middle of nowhere. You know nothing. You know nothing of a city of Waterdeep. It's the biggest settlement you've ever seen. You don't have to know. It's work your if you're take oh to quote um to quote Game of Thrones, take your weakness and make it your shield. It's like, really, really hone it. And, if you're going to play a character that doesn't know a lot, play a character that doesn't know a lot.
There, and you can be from those places. You can be from if you're playing something in Waterdeep in Faerun, you can be from Waterdeep as a player character. You may not know as a person. You may not know, where the yawning portal is. You may not know who the
Or
silver
what it is.
or what it is, or who the silver hand is, but you know your character may not know that either. And if your character does know it, it's really easy for a dungeon master or a storyteller to say, okay, you're walking up to a tavern and you see somebody with a particular pendant on a lapel, and the GM will tell you, you actually recognize this. This is a particular guild of artisans from your city, so you know that this is a craftsman. But your backstory, and I think one thing that's super important for me to get across, is your backstory is not about the setting. Your backstory is about who you are stepping into this world as. If you want to play somebody that's super engrossed in the environment, okay, say I'm gonna play a character from Waterdeep and I've never played it, and I want my character to be like a merchant's son or something. I am a merchant's son. My dad sells linens. He wants me to go to magic school, but I want to go run off and be a hero and fight with swords and be a fighter. That's all the information you need to play a decently rounded character. You have just given a plot hook for the DM. Dad wants you to go to college. Dad's a wealthy merchant. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? The storyteller can run with those things. But your information wasn't necessarily tied specifically to the world you're playing in, but it was still a rich and meaningful backstory. I think there's so much to be said for not worrying about the setting as much as worry about who you want to play.
And honestly, trust your DM. In my game in Breakfast and Dragons, my world has a lot of lore. I don't expect everyone to know it. I've got a notebook filled with it, so I don't have to remember it. But it's when it comes into it, one of the questions I hear most, especially people that are playing historians of this world, such as Derek's character Killian, he'll straight up ask me, would my character have knowledge of this? And I will tell him yes or no. Or if I wanted to leave it up to chance, I have him roll a die on it. It's when it comes down to it, it's trust your DM. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know everything about a world to come into it. It's a matter of fact, it's a lot more fun that way. Um, Coming into Avernus, playing Avernus as a player character, one thing that I noticed, we met Archon in Avernus. I'm a big Joe Manganiello fan because I love everything that he's done for D&D. Going through, I know all about Archon. I know all about his friends. I know all about the characters in it. That scene, I knew every character that's showing up. And honestly, I wish it didn't. I think it would have been a little bit more impactful and a little bit more awesome.
Yeah. For sure.
But
You know, their Forgotten Realms is a great example of a setting with a ton of lore. There are hundreds of books written in the Forgotten Realms, or what I jokingly refer to as the Remembered Realms, because we forgot about the rest of the planet. But say you're a big Critical Role fan and you want to play a game in Wildmount or in Tal'Dorei, well, you might know a lot about that setting from being a fan of the series, but your players might not, and that's okay. They don't have to. It's up to you as the storyteller to show them the way, show them the information they need to know as it becomes relevant.
exactly. Um, I feel like we can move on to the next one.
I feel like we could talk
We're
about this all night.
Yeah, we can set it. We can sit here and just pound through these because it's just the two of us. Okay. As a player, how to create entangled backstories with other players. That one's pretty easy. If I mean, talk to your other players. If you hear like Gabriel says, I want to play this paladin from this cloistered society and everything like that, and you just get a knack for it, and you hear it, and you go, you know what, I really like that. I'd like to do something like that for my character. We'll do something similar. I mean, it could be the simplest thing that binds you. And you brought up Critical Role. I'll give the example of two major characters in the first campaign, Vex and Vax. And that started with Laura Bailey and Liam O'Brien sharing a birthday.
Yeah,
They share a birthday, and when they made their characters, they go, "Hey, we share a birthday. That's something interesting between the two of us. What if we play twins?" And that's what started that. It could be anything. It's Gabriel wants to play a cloistered paladin. What if my character decided, what would be cool? He goes the military side of the religion. I play a cleric. I go with the more holy side of the religion. Then all of a sudden you have two brothers or a brother and sister that decide that they worship the same God, but one is a soldier, one is a cleric,
I
and
can
they
see
adventure
the
together.
I can see the family squabbles over dinner.
I mean,
uh,
uh,
there was a game that I played in where all four player characters were all brothers, and it happened super organically. But the way we approached that is saying, all right, we want to be brothers, but we want it to be uh, there's enough different that we are still different people. We're not like the brothers that grew up pulling each other's hair and giving each other wet willies. So, you know, there's the oldest brother, and then a half brother, and then an adopted, and then the taken in family friend kind of thing. That way they're all connected, but they're all very, very different people. Your character backstories can be entangled in 1,000 ways, and it's really up to you as a player character how much you want to do that. And communicate with your storyteller, communicate with your dungeon master.
don't ever feel like you think, hey, I don't want to do this. It's cheesy. You know what? Cheese is good. I mean, sometimes cheesy is the greatest thing. Um, but when it comes to backstories, if you just hear like through the character creation through session zero, if one of the other players is saying, a backstory that you really are digging on and you feel like you can add to it, just ask them. Say, hey, would you like to intertwine our backstories together? I think that would be really neat. Um,
Absolutely.
and I'll give you an example. My very first 5e campaign, like run it like learning D&D again with this new edition. Jacob ran for us at his house, and my wife and I we made characters, and we decided driving up from Tennessee to Louisville, that we were going to intertwine our backstories. She was a tiefling that um, was captured and saved by a half orc barbarian, and that's what I played. And and they had that combination of my character was very quiet and she talked a lot, and it was very fun to play it that way.
It is so easy to just, you could have been a part of the same rock collecting club. It could be what your kids that grew up on the same street. You're from the same village, but you're totally different people. Or maybe you went to college together, Bard College, whatever.
Um, I know Gabriel's not going to remember this, but one of my favorite combinations of characters that we played together was back during a 3.5 game run by our friend John. And I wanted to play a swashbuckling character who um, had his throat cut. He survived, of course, but he couldn't speak. He used thieves' cant, which is a hand sign to speak. The only other person in the party was the roguish halfling played by Gabriel that could translate for me.
That story
And
didn't last long. I wish it did.
yeah, that would have been absolutely amazing. We ran maybe 4 or 5 adventures, but it's really great when I'm writing him notes of what my character wants to say, and it's like long and lengthy. I hand it to him, and he says no. I'm just like, don't share any of the details or anything that I said. Um, but that was actually a lot of fun, and it was very enjoyable. When it comes to your backstory can really lead into how you play that character. And to me, language has always been something very fun. One of my favorite characters I played in second edition, I played which Rangers were vastly different in second edition. You get like one species enemy, and that was it. Um, I played a female elven ranger who hated humans. Humans were her species enemy. She refused to learn Common. She did not know Common. She only spoke Elven. I wanted that in her background. So it made conversations a struggle.
Yep.
And I wanted that. I thought that would be, really interesting. You have a character that refused to learn Common. You used to refuse to learn the man's tongue. And that was actually a really awesome character to play.
I dig it. I forgot about that, man. The
Yeah.
the that I've been wanting to do another hand sign character for a while. I forgot that we had done that.
Yeah.
Oh, so intertwining your backstories, super easy, and it's just a matter of communication.
It's just simple. If you like someone's idea, ask them if they want to intertwine characters. Um it actually gets you, if you're new to a group, get you to open up and meet someone. Open up to someone. And let's see, the next one's more of a DM question, I think. As a storyteller, what are some examples of how to create unexpected and surprising twists with character backstories?
Oh
Uh,
man. Uh, Honestly, one of the best examples that I can give is from a Star Wars game that I played. I played a character over a long period of game, um, and uh, character started out very militaristic, and by the end of it was not. But there was this really fun twist where my character found out that some of their DNA had been taken and a clone had been grown of them. So suddenly my character has a child that they didn't know existed. Uh, there are that may not be as much backstory, but um, actually, here's a really good example. So, a friend of mine asked me for some help for working on some player backstories. He's running a game that's been running for a while, and two of his player characters were siblings, and they wrote into their backstory that they were a part of some prophecy for Asmodeus. They wrote that into their backstory. They didn't write what the prophecy was. So, really interesting twist. We took that it was actually their younger brother that they didn't know they had, who wound up being this horrible evil prophecy for Asmodeus. You can take a character's backstory, so say it's a prophecy built into the character's backstory. Well, what is the letter of the law of the prophecy? Because prophecies are always super vague, really vague. So twist it. How can you change it ever so slightly, or change the interpretation ever so slightly, so that it creates a whole new story path? Or your player went off to war and they came home and their family was dead. They'd been dead for years. Well, maybe their family's alive somewhere and they don't know it. There are lots of ways to pick and choose and grab pieces of a character's backstory. Um, my brain is going straight to like my current player characters, and I don't want to give away spoilers on any twists that may exist. Do you have any there, Bill?
I was just listening to you, but yeah, I mean, if it comes down to it as a DM, um, the players' backstories are very important. You want to tie in their backstories into the world at large. Um, I'm trying to think of, well, you mentioned the Star Wars game. I'll just bring that up. Like,
Sure.
so I had, um, I had a long-running Star Wars game, and it started in the Old Republic and went to those that read the Legacy time period. I'm not talking about the Solo Twins. I'm talking about the Legacy time period in the comic books, the short-run comic book series with Cade Skywalker is very, very amazing, and I had to do a game set in this time period. And they had Imperial Knights. These were knights that were sworn to the Empire as kind of Jedi's. They're neutral knights. They all used the same white bladed lightsaber. To them, the Force was a tool, and their creed was absolutely amazing. They were sworn to serve the Emperor as a representation of the Force, and if he was ever to fall again to the dark side, they were to bring him back to the light or end him. That was their creed. And we had a friend of ours, John, that wanted to play one of the Imperial Knights, and he wrote it into his backstory that he wanted his father to be a Republic captain of a ship. So you have automatically family is split up between two sides of this war. You have an Imperial Knight, you have a father who is a rebel captain or um, New Alliance captain. So going into it later in the game, I always knew I was going to do something with that. And one of the points was when John's character was going to graduate from acolyte to actual full blown knight. The Empire put a test, and the test was he was brought into a room with his father bound, and he had to make a decision. He was given the choice. He says, "Prove your loyalty to the Empire." So right then, John was put on the spot. What does he do as his character? His character is a zealot, promised to the Empire. So he slew his father, which turned out to be a decoy. It was one of the, I forgot the series of robots that can, in Star Wars, that can impersonate humans, but he was an android. So instantly, he had, um, he wrote that into his backstory, and I took it and I played with it. I had fun with it. It's like I knew from the start that with the Empire, with him writing this into his backstory, it was gonna have to be used to prove his loyalty to the Empire eventually. And I knew that as a DM. It's and that because that's just a little snippet, a little tidbit that he put in there that I could play with.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always have to be bad. It doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It's like, a lot of DMs go, "Oh, well, you gave me your backstory, I can torture you with it." It's like, "Oh, yeah, family members left?" Ha! No, it can always be good things too. It's like maybe you have a long lost sister that you're looking for, and as a GM, you can really run with that. It's a great plot hook. If I mean, honestly speaking, as a GM's perspective, say you want to have a little carrot on a stick and get someone to get the party to go this way. Well, drop a line that so and so's sister was seen in that area. Automatically, that person's going to want to go there, especially given their backstory. It's great. It's like I have a notebook with plot points of everyone's backstories in my current game written there. And if I need something done, I'll go back to it. I'm constantly looking at it because it's part of this world too, and it's what they wrote. So,
There's a note in chat from Tiffer's cosplay that one of the great things about having or about creating backstory is having a friend or a fellow player to bounce ideas off of, especially when that player is also a storyteller themselves. So if I think I'm writing something too closed booked or with too much information, etc., I'll call Bill or I'll call Jacob or Patrick or Tiffers or any of our friends that also run games and be like, "Hey, does this work? Is this too much?"
and honestly, to plug our Discord out there, we do have a Forever DMs Discord. Let's say you don't have that community. There's a lot of communities out there. You know what? Join our Discord. We'd love that. Post in an open chat. You need to bounce a backstory idea off of us. We'll gladly answer. There's plenty of us that's on there every day. Um,
Another comment in chat that someone's partner helps them theory craft. It just made me laugh because my wife helps me torture players all the time.
See, that's really funny. With my wife leaving Breakfast and Dragons for a while, she said, "Hey, you can tell me stuff now. You can share stuff with me now." And she wasn't away from the campaign more than 2 hours before she sat me down and had me tell her everything that's going on currently.
Oh man, to pick her brain right now. Oh
She's like, "Okay,
god.
I'm not coming back for a while because I got to finish my practicum. What's going on this island, Bill?"
We still won't finish it by the time she comes back.
So I thought that was hilarious. I laughed because I was like, "Hey, I can share stuff."
If you don't have a community, our Discord is the Forever DMs.
Yeah, it's linked. It's linked in our about section.
Feel free to join. We have a bunch of dungeon masters and storytellers in there. I'm getting holy smokes. Please join our chat so I can help you if you need it in chat. So I'm happy to plug that again.
Yeah, it's definitely. We have an open Discord. Just join it if you have any questions whatsoever. Well, you have an army of DMs in there that will gladly share
Yeah.
ideas and bounce ideas off of you. Because guess what? We do it for each other all the time, and we're sick of hearing each other's voices. Um,
Looks like a question from you, Bill. How can we create backstories designed for character growth?
I wrote that because I think that's something a lot of new players need to think about when they create their characters, and it comes into the idea of not making a finished character. Write a character with difficulties. I'm not talking about major difficulties, but characters difficulties you'll have fun with. Going into the aspect of communication, I wanted to play a Kenku blood hunter, and I hate to say a DM did it wrong, but part of I don't want to say that about anyone, but part of the thrill of playing a Kenku was I wanted to struggle bus with the communication problem because I was at the table, I was the most experienced player. And I knew I was going to be the de facto leader in that because all of us that are experienced D&D players, you know what happens when you're playing with a bunch of people that haven't ever played before. They default to you. I did not want to do that. I did not want to lead the game. I did not want to be the leader. I wanted to play a character that was in the background, a Snake Eyes like character from GI Joe, the quiet one that can help get things done. I wanted to play a Kenku because that would be great, playing a character that can't talk. Um, Within the second adventure, no, second session into this, he had developed the DM had developed the way to get around the Kenku not talking and gave me a voice. And I was like, that's not really what I wanted. And I ended up not having fun with the character in the long run because the DM changed it to the point to where it wasn't the character I wanted to play.
It took away the
And
difficulty. It took away the growth.
Yeah, exactly. It took away the growth of a character. It was my personal adventure that I wrote for myself to learn to communicate as a character that can only make noises and only mimic. And I had this great idea. I had a notepad. In every conversation we had with an NPC, I was writing stuff down, and I was just going to start parroting back literal conversation pieces I had. And kind of like I was envisioning Bumblebee from Transformers speaking through song, you
I
know?
love that.
And it he just snatched it out from under me for the sake of ease, to make things easier. Because he wanted me to come in and be that character that helped the new people come, run the game, and I didn't want that. But character growth is put hurdles in your backstory for your character to accomplish. Um, you know, I want to give you tidbits of ideas when you write your backstory. Okay, don't kill off your characters. That's a trope that I personally am sick of in backstory or your parents. It's like don't kill off your parents. How about you and your parents had a falling out? Write this in, and that's something the DM can have fun with. Maybe he can write an adventure about you reconciling with your dad. Reconciling with your mom.
That's
You
awkward.
know, do what?
So that's awkward.
Yeah, I mean, it could be don't just kill off your parents. And it's like everyone has an interesting backstory, but most of the time people are like, "Oh, they're dead. My parents are dead."
So, looking at ways to uh, design a character for growth, one of the things that I really like to do is to ask a question. Who does this person want to become? And okay, I have a character who wants to become a paladin, but I want them to go through the journey of not being a paladin yet. Okay, well, maybe that means that they grew up in a church. Things didn't go great, so they struck out on their own, still trying to prove themselves to their god, regardless. Um, that is a lot of room for growth. That is a lot of room for becoming something more, something greater. You are a student. Well, that innately means you're still learning. You are an acolyte. That means innately you are still serving, still becoming something greater. So, what is the question that you want to ask with your character? Do I want to play somebody who goes through this journey, this big spiritual journey, or do I want to play somebody who's kind of already gone through their spiritual journey? Now it's more about discovering them personally. To use a great example of from drawing from Critical Role again, Travis Willingham's character in this campaign, the second campaign, Ford. He's a character who started out with this big mystery of what happened to my crew. He's a pirate or a sailor who got shipwrecked. What happened to my crew? Well, there's something really huge that a storyteller can grab and just run with. You know, put a unresolved question in your backstory that deals with something that's important to you as a character. And that leaves room for growth and for future story points and for character evolution along the way.
Leave seats for your DM. And it's like, and I'm talking about they can be as big and as grandiose as you want them to be. Um, like, do the Logan's Run. Say your family has a historical curse on them and every male dies before the age of 35 and your character's 33. It's like any DM worth their salt is going to run and salivate at that idea. And what is this? What can I do? What this person is giving me this to mess around
They
with.
are giving me a ticking clock on their character.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing. That would be so much fun. Um, but one thing to keep in mind when you're writing your backstory, and I'll give you a great supplement that'll help you out. Starting level. not everybody likes starting out at first level. I personally like it because I feel like it gives the players a better sense of ownership with their characters. People like to start out at third because that's when you get your archetype. Because honestly, given the paladin example, you don't take your oath until third level. So technically, you're not a paladin until then. But starting off at first level, it's easy to write a first level backstory. It's going to be simple. You know, you can put a couple complications in there. But let's say your DM tells you, okay, we're going to start off at fifth level. Okay, the fifth level fighter is going to be have a lot more experience than a first level fighter. And one of the greatest supplements is the DMG. In the DMG, it actually breaks down level periods 1 through 5, 5 through 10, 10 through 15, and it tells you where your character should be in the world. And 1 through 5, folk hero. You know, it tells you you've adventured enough in your area, you've got some reputation. You're a folk hero in the area. Um, I believe I'm going to probably get these horribly wrong. 5 to 10, I believe you're like, you know, you're a hero of the region, a hero of the city. You know, going up until like level 20, you're a legend. Everybody's going to know about you by the time you're level 20. You know, read the DMG, you know, check this out on D&D Beyond or any online supplement you deal with. It should say the level that you're starting at, the level of reputation you should have in the area, and run with it. Oh, let's say you're a folk hero. Well, you know, your DM tells you we're starting off at level 5. Okay, looking at this, oh, well, I'm a folk hero. Well, I want to play a ranger. Okay, first thing that pops in your head, ranger, folk hero, who do you think of? Robin Hood,
Yeah.
you know? And it's, you know, run with it. Run with that idea. You should be a little famous by this time. You know, fifth level, you should have a little bit of a following. Go with it. And you know what? You know, let's flip that on its head. Let's say you're a first level character and you're playing a bard or you're playing a barbarian or playing a fighter. Maybe you believe you should have a better reputation than what you do. You know, that would be absolutely hilarious to be a first level fighter coming into a bar. Don't you know who I am? You know, it's something that is very interesting coming in. And you know, have fun with your backstory. Write some funny stuff in there. You know, it's your backstory. It's the introduction of your character and the introduction of yourself, making this little corner of the world just your own.
Absolutely. I think we've already touched pretty solidly on what makes some difficulties and some traps that first time players will often make with their backstories. Uh, Talking about the overly complicated backstory that's a closed book, things like that. But the philosophical question here, the chicken and the egg question, backstory or character creation, which came first?
Yeah,
Uh,
what comes first, character idea or backstory?
so for one shots, for short little serial episodes, I would say probably character creation. Figuring out what, like, all right, we're going to play in a one shot. I want to play a fighter. Cool. All right, then I'll go from there. For anything else, though, I think, for me at least, they go hand in hand. Uh, the the character I'm playing in your game, Bill, an Arcadian mage, like that is a huge plot point for him. Like, and also super defines his character. So I think they kind of go hand in hand. You know, he's a mage. He's from this ancient culture. So, all right, I need to make him more exotic. I need to work in some interesting stuff for his background to make him make sense. Um, or another character that I'm going to be running here soon. Started out with a concept. Playing the scene in Thor Ragnarok when Immigrant Song comes on and Thor comes landing down in the group covered in lightning in the group of undead warriors. Like, that is a character concept for me. And I'm going to grab that and run with it and create a character background around that. I know it's silly.
But to me, it depends on the character. Um, I can say going into Avernus, I wanted to play a Minotaur Paladin. Like that's how it started. It's like I had a race, I had the class, I knew what I wanted to play. Thinking about how Minotaurs are in Faerun, they're barbarians. They don't really exist. Don't really exist as player characters. The player character Minotaur comes from Ravnica, and they're smaller. So instantly I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, so he's going to be smaller than the other Minotaur, so he's going to be the runt of the tribe. He's going to be picked on. He's going to be. So I wanted to even like make him even more of an outcast. He was born an albino, so he's a completely white Minotaur. And so I wrote this backstory where he was constantly abused by these, you know, Baphomet worshipping Minotaurs, to the point that when he came of age, they pushed him in the front of the vanguard when they went into a battle because they wanted him to die. He ended up living and met the humans that they were fighting against and met a cleric of Ilmater as he was dying. And I wrote this scene where he's passing away and the cleric talks to my character and convinces them that, don't go back to the tribe. You know, gives them directions to a temple. Go here, say my name, and they'll take care of you. And so he ends up going to this temple, and he ends up falling into the religion, becoming less of a, primitive minotaur that was there, and ends up becoming a paladin. But it's still interesting because his story doesn't stop there. When it comes into starting the game, he's in Baldur's Gate at the beginning of Avernus, but he's still a giant minotaur. No one's believing he's a paladin. No one's really trusting him when he's trying to do stuff that's good because everyone's used to these minotaurs being evil. So he doesn't really feel that need until he gets to hell in Avernus, and then he realizes he's actually doing good here. His powers are powerful in hell, and he's doing stuff for Ilmater to the point to where now he's got a character struggle that he doesn't want to leave hell because he feels like he's being the paladin he always should be here. But
So for that character, uh, the creation concept, the Minotaur Paladin came first
yes,
for you.
but it's not always like that. Like I had a Memorial Day one this Sunday, and it was a comedy one shot. I had it in my head. I wanted to play a drill sergeant. I wanted to play a dwarven drill sergeant, and I made a College of Valor dwarven drill sergeant. That was what I wanted. It's like what would make a drill sergeant in D&D? I was like, okay, College of Valor, that's perfect. Backstory kind of came first there and led into the character creation. And Major Matthias Payne was born. Yes, Major Payne. So it's, I mean that was it's not one or the other. It just depends on the concept of the character itself.
Yeah. Uh,
What
so for that question, I really think it just depends. It's going to change each time. Apparently, Sarge was a big hit on Sunday.
Yes, Sarge was a big hit on Sunday, especially because all of his little spells were I was stealing from Derek, very much so. All the shatters were grenades, and I had a lot of fun. I based him off of Arnie Army, if you know who he.
Yeah, I love
All the inspirations were great. That was great, boy. Keep going. It's like
it.
bardic inspiration. It was a lot of fun. Um,
Well, that is actually our last question that we have written down for tonight. So I would actually like to challenge you. We mentioned earlier about I threw out the idea about doing some live character creation here.
okay.
So I want to do a quick back and forth where we do two separate characters. Um, so, and just to show how easy it is to create character backstories that you can run with.
But I also like to say that you and I have been playing. For one, you and I have been best friends for almost over 20 years now,
That's fine.
and and we both have a lot of experience playing
We're
D&D.
we're our friendship is legally married at this point.
Yeah.
So I am going to play a dwarf, and I would like to play a warlock. So I'm gonna tag. So taking a dwarf warlock. Where are we from, and what's our background like?
So the first thing I would ask is what world, but
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. Where are we from? Honestly, Dwarven Warlock, family of engineers, and I'm talking about the ancient or the old British term of engineer, like the people that handle graveyards.
Okay, nice. I like it.
So he's already an outcast of dwarven society. His family could have been, a family that grew up through birth. That the he could be the eldest son, and the eldest son was always meant to tend the graveyard. The youngest son, the second born, was the one that can go off and do everything that they want to do. But he was born the firstborn, so he was stuck taking after dad.
I like it. That's a good one. All right, give me a race and a class.
Mm, let's see. Let's pull something really, really out there for you. Um, Changeling monk.
Changeling monk. Uh, so I was found washed up on the side of a river uh, at a monastery. Um, the monks took me in and assumed I was either gifted or cursed in some way, shape, or form, and felt that they should either protect me or train me so that I could not be dangerous to the world. And so I grew up in this monastery with very little experience of the outside world, no knowledge of my a culture that I may have come from or anything. As far as I know, I was born in this monastery. The monks are my mother and father. The monastery is my playground, and that is where I grew up. So, leaving the monastery as a player character, I know nothing of the world. So the quintessential like changelings are evil stereotypes. Like I could literally be the holiest and most pious character in the world as a changeling, and then suddenly I get out there and my strange skin and my weird gaunt face freak everybody out, and I pop and change into something in a panic that I think may be more acceptable, not knowing that I had that ability before, and trying to navigate the world as that player or that character.
And it reminds me of our friend back in the day that played Flower, the dwarf that was raised in the monastery, not raised by other dwarves, so he knew nothing about dwarves.
Hmm.
And so he just made stuff up. Dwarves are natural climbers.
Yep. Oh man, I want to hit you one more time here. A turtle blood hunter.
Portal Blood Hunter. Now, when it comes to turtles, the one thing that I disagree on with them is their age. They actually live for a short amount of time. Because we think of tortoises, they should be like really freaking old. But being as young as he is, let's say, okay, so he was captured at a young age, brought into a carnival. He was a sideshow. Let's say as he was coming into it, something happens at the carnival. You can have it to be a supernatural event or anything like that, or leave it as a mystery. He wakes up one morning, his cage door opens, and everyone in the carnival is dead. He's taken in by a blood hunter that is investigating the incident. It's like don't define what happened. Leave that for the DM. But he's taken in by a blood hunter that's investigating this supernatural event that's happened. And let's even say that the blood hunter is part of a guild called the Menagerie or something like that, or the Crimson Stable. That's a good one. So he's part of the Crimson Stable, a group of monster hunters that go out, and he's trained. He gets pretty much adopted by this blood hunter and trained to be a blood hunter himself. And so right then you have so many hooks that the DM can go nuts over. The DM can look at that and be like, okay, what really killed the carnival? What really freed him? Will he hate them or will he love them for letting him go, for helping him get free? Then you get into the idea as a DM. It's like maybe it was a malevolent spirit that let him go, and then he tracks it down as a blood hunter, and you realize, hey, it's a malevolent spirit. It actually was trying to help me. It didn't realize that it was going to be so horrible. So he has to make a choice. If he's trained as a monster, does he kill it or not?
I like that a lot. That's a good one. All right, one more time. Hit me.
I'm trying to think of something outlandish and something out there. Um, I'm trying to think of the most difficult one I can think of for you. Cobalt Paladin.
Cobalt Paladin. Okay. Um, you.
No, no,
Well,
no. Wait. Specifically, if we're going into higher levels, um, Cobalt Redemption Paladin.
oh man, I've got to double check. Let me double check Redemption Paladin here.
Redemption Paladins are the pacifist paladins. They'll do everything they can not to fight, unless it's a demon, unless it's like obviously evil, like a lich or something.
Yeah, because Redemption is a new one, newer one. Peace, innocence, patience, wisdom. Okay. Um, you uh, grew up in the lair of a dragon. Some heroes came and slaughtered the dragon and took his hoard. Took the dragon's hoard. As a kobold, you suddenly don't have your sense of security. You suddenly don't have your sense of rule. Like the hierarchy's gone. These comfort, safety and security of having an ancient dragon there is gone. Um, if its own level of anxiety as well. So uh, as a kobold, there it goes. As a kobold, you strike out on your own, and every time you try to attack or kill something to eat, you just utterly fail. And one day there is a little animal that is getting attacked by another animal, and you, for some reason, feel a kinship to this animal, and so you step in and save it. Uh, and it turns out that animal was a messenger from a god. Uh, Insert benevolent god here. And in spending time with that, you realize you're starting to hear a voice from this animal in your head for a little while, telling you that protecting other people is okay, but the animal teaches you how to live off the land and how to not harm the environment around you, so not disturb the family of bears, but still get honey peacefully without interacting with them, that kind of thing. So now you have been chosen as a paladin, but you're almost more like a druid as a personality type.
Who says a paladin has to be the armor wearing knight in the castle? You could be a paladin that's closer to nature.
Absolutely. That was a really hard one. Um, Patrick
Or
threw
about
out. Patrick
do
threw.
what?
Patrick threw one in chat for you.
Furbolg Sorcerer?
Yep.
Okay. So Furbolgs are naturally magical. I mean, they have the ability to go invisible, they have detect magic, everything like that. So I will do you one better. What if it's a Furbolg that's born with the wildest color of hair they could possibly think of, but they're actually ousted from their tribe because they're born a wild sorcerer. Like, I lose my voice. So it's, wild magic. And, they're coming in and they're actually struggling with these powers to where he has to go off and find someone to teach him how to do this. Let's say that they're not dangerous, but there's some very embarrassing moments within his tribe. And not that he was ousted, but say the tribe has urged him to go off to find it for his own safety, to learn about these powers and to focus it and to bring, and he can come back. It's like they're, go off, find what this is. You turned Roderick into a sheep. You realize you did that? And, we've got to figure out a way to control this so you can come back home. It's like your mother's blue.
I love it. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's a good one. All
So,
right.
well, we got 15 minutes left, or we can call it early, or we can keep doing this if you want to.
Well, if chat throws any more out here in the next minute, we'll do them.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah, let's have that. Chat challenge us. Come on.
yep.
Just do a race in a class. Let's see what happens. I know
that
Tipper's got one in her.
that cobalt one was rough. Like how do I do this and make it interesting? Like I started in a mountain. Where do I go from here? That was a
See,
good one.
what I would have done is I would have had him be part of a gang that, um, very violent. Have the gang leader be a bigger kobold, or the gang leader be a hobgoblin, or just a goblin. And they did something that he didn't like. Like it just naturally he didn't like. They attacked an orphanage. They attacked an old man, and the old man had a heart attack while they were robbing him. Just something that made him regret
I like
it
it.
happening. And then he breaks off. And now he's dealing with these emotions that kobolds never grew up. Learn sorrow, regret, guilt, and he ends up finding himself, by meeting a cleric, going to a church, or, someone stumbling across him. Let's say an adventurer finds him and they're actually expecting that the kobold's going to draw a weapon or do something like that. And the kobold just sits there, sad. And the adventurer just has a moment and just, are you okay? And it'll be the first time someone's ever showed him compassion.
I love it. That's a good one. Well, little on the silent side from chat at the moment.
Yep.
So,
Maybe
uh,
they're freezing.
thank you very much for tuning in to a little bit shorter and a little bit more intimate episode of Shooting the Crit. Remember, next Tuesday, I run that game, and I swear I know what day it is. The 8th
Yep.
will be the next episode of Thrain at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here. And
Followed by, on the 12th, Breakfast and Dragons. Keep an eye out on our Twitter during that week. We will post another poll to see what you guys want us to talk about here on Shooting a Crit for our next episode, which will be on the 15th.
Yep. And keep your eyes open for a one-shot coming up in the next month or two. We're been a little slow on getting that scheduled, but we'll get that up and running here before too long. And since I neglected to mention it earlier, we are partners with Go Figure and Geeks Unleashed. They've been wonderful enough to give Forever DMs and our viewers and community a discount. So head to gofigure.us And they're 3D printed miniatures, got all sorts of beautiful designs, and use the code Forever DMs for an additional 10% off of your order. And I think that's it for tonight.
Yeah, I believe that's it. So keep in mind, here at the Forever Dams, we like to leave you with a little tidbit. We like to say that, keep in mind, kindness is a free action. Do it
And
every day and every round.
and especially in this Pride Month, as we celebrate those of our community who occasionally struggle through life a little more than they need to have to because of the actions of others. Remember, be kind. All of our LGBTQ plus friends, family, and gamer community people out there, we love you very much. Thank you for being awesome. Happy Pride.